Okay, we're going to take a look at raising I to a power. And we know previously that, or we learned a couple days ago, that I is equal to the square root of negative 1. So we can also look at it this way, is if we had 2 is equal to the square root of 4, and the way we undo a square root is we square both sides. And if we were to square both sides, 2 squared is 4, and the square root of 4 squared is 4 as well. So if we were to square both sides in this case, we would have I squared equals the square undoes the square root, and so we would get negative 1. So we know I squared is equal to negative 1. So if we have I to the third power, well, we know I to the third power is the same as I times I times I. And we know that I times I is I squared, and I squared is equal to negative 1. So I to the third would have to equal negative 1 times I, or negative I. And I to the fourth, well, we know I to the fourth is I times I times I times I. This guy gives me negative 1. This guy gives me negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. And we can keep going like that. So, for example, if I have I to the 11th power, that would be the same as, well, how many I squareds would we have? We would have 1, 2, so that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So I squared is negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, I. That's 1, that's 1, and then that would give us negative I. So that's a way to break it down. Our other example that you need to know how to do is to multiply complex numbers. Now, a complex number is made up of 2 parts. We have the real part, and then we have the imaginary part. So when we multiply these, we're going to multiply them like a binomial using, if you learned Algebra 1 middle school or a different school, you probably learned it using FOIL. We talked about that yesterday. Or maybe you use distributive property, or maybe you use the chart. That's up to you. If you used FOIL with FOIL, so first would be 3 times 4, or 12. Outsides would be 3 times negative 3i, would give us negative 9i. Insides, 4 times 2i would give us 8i. And last, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, I squared. Now we know that I squared is equal to negative 1, so let's simplify this. 12, negative 9i plus 8i would give us negative 1i. And then we'd have minus 6, and I squared is negative 1, so that really gives us a plus 6. So 12 plus 6 is 18, so we have 18 minus 1i, or 18 minus I, would be our complex number. Real part, imaginary part. If you use the box method, we have 3, 2i, 4, negative 3i. You can do the exact same thing. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times negative 3i is negative 9i, just like we did over here. 4 times 8i, negative 6i squared, which is negative 6 times negative 1, which gives us 6. And we have 18 minus 1i. Distributive property method from Algebra 1 would just be 3 times 4 minus 3i plus 2i times 4 minus 3i. Scooted up there, sorry. So that's the distributive property method. Still, we're using distributive property through all of these. It's just which method you want to choose. So that's how you multiply complex numbers.